So I went to Word of Life Snow Camp over the weekend, and one of the messages was about what it looks like to cause the effect. Not cause and effect, but we want to cause the effect. We want to be the catalyst for this reaction that's going to happen. First he starts by outlining cause and effect, which is the direct relationship between an action and its consequence or reaction. And the example he gave was dominoes, because by one domino, hundreds or even thousands may fall. And then he brought up kind of a mini point of the power of one for good or for worse. So the first point he brought up was Esther. She saved her people from death and destruction. In Esther 4:14, it says, "If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, and you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." So in Esther's situation, the king was threatening to do harm to the people, to the Jewish people, and Esther used her royal status, and she put all of it on the line to possibly be able to save them by entering the king's courts when not appointed. She could have been killed, exiled, any sort of punishment for that, but she decided to speak up and save the Jews in the process. So one of the examples that one person did one thing and it happened and it ended extremely poorly is Achan. I believe that it was at the Battle of Jericho, or the conquest of Jericho, where Joshua instructed them to take nothing, leave everything, because all of that belongs to the Lord, because the Lord delivered them, and it's essentially an offering to the Lord. And then in Joshua 7, starting in verse 24, it says, "Then Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the cloak, and the bar of gold, his sons and daughters, his ox, donkey, and sheep, his tent, and all that he had, and brought them up to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, 'Why have you brought us trouble? Today the Lord will bring you trouble.' So all Israel stoned him to death. They burned their bodies and threw stones on them, and raised over a large pile of rocks that remains there still today. Then the Lord turned from his burning anger. Therefore that place is called the Valley of Achor still today." So Achan took these things from Jericho, and it caused the death of him and his family, as well as a loss in a battle for Israel. And then another very trivial example is Adam. In Genesis 3 verse 7, it says, Then the both of their eyes were opened, and they knew they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. So they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, against what God told them to. And sin entered the world in our bloodline through them. And then the last example, and completely obvious example, is Jesus. Through Jesus and his death on the cross, anyone can be made righteous. It says in Romans 5:19, "For it is the one man's disobedience," or in other words, Adam's disobedience, "that many were made sinners." Sin was put into our bloodline. So also, by the one man's obedience, the many will be made righteous. And through Jesus and his death, we are able to be made righteous and perfect again through him. Jesus and his death acts like a pair of glasses that God sees us through, because God is perfect. God cannot see death. God cannot see sin. But through the glasses that is Jesus Christ, he can see us redeemed and restored. And that is what it's like that's how powerful it is, and how impactful you can be as just one person. Another example he gave, I don't remember the exact name, but there was a man that he shared the gospel with this young kid, or I believe it was at one of his conventions, he shared the gospel with this one kid. That kid went to share gospel with another guy, and another guy, and another guy, and the cycle just kept on repeating, and eventually Franklin Graham got saved. And so through all of their obedience, we have one of the most powerful preachers of this age. And also, if they would have been disobedient to God's call to serve and to share the gospel, then we would not have some of the most impactful preachers, and millions of lives would not have been saved and led to Christ. So that's how powerful it is. And you can do the same thing.